It's time to reclaim your goddess path of the divine feminine. Brought to you by Quantum Wave Wristband Technologies from Kehler Holistic. The female wristband hormone balancer infuses Shakaya's rhythmic frequency to your body's natural harmony. The Quantum Wave Female Hormone Balancer wristband discreetly and gracefully keeps your hormones in check, reducing disruptive and problematic monthly symptoms that can interfere in your divine path. Using carefully selected radionic frequencies, the Female Hormone Balancer wristband's healing vibrations are delicately aligning the body's hormones to nature's balance. Simply put on the wristband, and you are set to transform monthly challenges to blissful contentment. Go to Kehler Holistic to find these integrated frequencies in all our selection of quantum wave wristbands. It's time to restore your body's feminine life divinity, and take back your nurturing essence. Find healing and real caring at Kehler Holistic. Visit chriskehler.net.
Mr. Chris Kehler.
Welcome again to another rip-roaring edition of A Quantum View. Of course, I am Chris Kehler. Here we are again, live and on podcast later on in a few hours. Consider yourself a jealous guy?
Never.
Well, you want to know something?
Yes.
You are. You're jealous. I'm jealous. Everyone is jealous.
Of?
So, whatever. Okay, jealousy. Now we discovered about jealousy is that it's actually a curse. The Lesser Key of Solomon, which is a curse from the Ars Notoria, is a jealousy curse. When you're jealous, jealousy contains all the emotions of fear, hate, anger. It's got a lot to do with your self-esteem. If you're jealous, let's say you feel somebody might be trying to see after your wife, you get jealous. That lowers your vibration. So jealousy is a vibration-lowering curse that basically everyone has within our soul. And then if you have a sick area in your body, you might have that jealousy within there. It's lowering the vibration of it. So that was a real interesting find that we came up with a couple weeks ago. And then also removing, we've been dissolving the scalar fields, the plasma fields within our body. So we've got all these different constructs of energy that are not doing us any good that we've been finding and clearing out. So it's been an interesting last couple of weeks for sure, to say the least. And then upcoming with this eclipse and all these new activations is going to be a real game changer for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And assuming that this is going to allow us to get in and help people with ALS and cerebral palsy and you name it, all those big, bad, ugly, life-stealing energies, all those life-stealing diseases we're going to be able to get to. And then people like Monsanto will be very upset with me and send me a nasty letter, and I'll burn up my campfire.
Oh, ouch.
All right, let's get on with it. Now, our guest tonight, her name is Shakaya Leone. Shakaya discovered the raw food diet 17 years ago and inspired her whole family to go raw. Now, I don't know about you, Bob, but I can't eat a steak raw. I got to cook it a little bit.
Yeah,
just kidding.
Barbecue.
She then decided to inspire a world of women. Shakaya has become a trusted voice in the health community and has attracted tens of thousands to her online events. Shakaya's website, earthempress.com, is a portal of beauty and inspiration that inspires women in exquisite self-care so they can live their legacy. Shakaya says, "You are beautiful and brilliant. You walk a path no one else could. When you take exquisite care of yourself, you create a ripple effect that extends to everyone in your life. We can protect our legacy and save the planet, not by burning ourselves out. It's the kindest thing you can do for anyone, is to keep your well filled and overflowing. Shakaya has wrote the books Naked Beauty, The Nude Food, and is a creator of World Detox Day and a teacher of barefoot grounding. Her website again is earthempress.com. Would you please welcome to a Quantum View, Shakaya Leone.
Hi guys, it's Shakaya here.
Did I get your name wrong?
No, that's okay. It's Shakaya, like Gaia, like Mother
Shakaya.
Earth.
Everybody gets my name wrong. Everybody's like, oh, kehler, and I'm like, no, kehler like Taylor.
Right. No biggie.
How are you today, Shakaya? Sorry, I'm going to get it wrong 15 times.
No, I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here, and I love the topic, so very happy to be here.
We're going to take a gander down the road of barefoot grounding. Now, I'm going to revert back a little bit into the days when I was selling some products. There was a product I carried. It was called Barefoot Connections. It was a sheet that you put on your bed, and it had silver strands of thread within it. And you plug this thing into the wall, and it plugged into the ground of the wall so you could be sleeping and ground yourself while you're sleeping.
Right. I've definitely heard of that. There's a lot of really fun, interesting gadgets around now, which is fantastic. We don't need all of them, or, that one in particular. I think that's great because we are sleeping on beds that are elevated from the ground, and we're not sleeping outdoors under the stars on the earth anymore. So those grounding sheets and grounding mats, for example, I have a grounding mat. They're wonderful because what they do is they keep you grounded even when you're not actually outside being grounded. So I'm sure we'll get into what the benefits are of being grounded and why this is so important. But for now, definitely, if somebody wanted to get started and they didn't know really what to do, there's all kinds of cool reading material online and products. And it's just like an amazing it's not really new, actually. I mean, it's as old as the earth, but it seems like a new technology for us.
Let's call it an education as to why we're not grounded. I mean, if you look at what we wear on our shoes on a daily basis, it's all rubber shoes. We're all insulated from the grounding capabilities of the earth.
That's right. And, it's interesting. Native peoples wearing shoes such as moccasins, which are less insulating. It's like some people have known about this energy and this nutrient that comes from the earth, and it's for free. But when we are wearing rubber soles and sleeping indoors and elevated off the ground and all the things that we do, plus all the EMFs, the electrical magnetic pollution, we become less grounded. So this is so important. This is like one of the most activating, beneficial, fun, simple, easy things that I did after I changed my diet and went more raw. And I saw so many health benefits from that. And I became almost like, a new person. And then a few years into that journey, it just led me to this grounding piece, which was the next part of the puzzle. And it was like the next best thing that I have done for myself since going raw. So highly recommended, obviously.
What does a person need to do to actually ground themselves? There's obviously some technique that people need to know about to go to, let's say, the highest degree of grounding, if you will.
Well, you're right. It is as simple as taking off your shoes and getting outside and breathing deeply and allowing your skin, your feet, your bare feet, or if you're lying down on the grass, your bare legs and arms, everything, to just touch the ground and connect with the ground. And that way the electromagnetic energies of Mother Earth can come into your being, come into your body. And we can be grounded just by being in the forest and breathing deep, or if we're in the lake, all of this is very, very grounding. If we're in any of the waters from the earth, that's very grounding. If we're just stepping onto the earth with our bare feet, that's very grounding. But as you said, there's probably higher and higher ways of doing that. So, for example, just to get started, just deep breathing is going to bring in some of this this beautiful energy and the negative ions from the air and from the atmosphere and from the earth, especially if you are bare feet, barefooted outside, or if you're in the natural waters of the earth. Well, for example, myself, I like to take it to the next level. I do walk barefoot every single day, including even in the wintertime. And I live in Canada up north, and we do have many, many months of, deep, deep snow and practically Arctic conditions. I live in a snow belt, actually, and it's very cold. But I've trained myself over the years to do polar bear dips in the lake and to walk on the snow. And so whether it's raining or snowing or sunshine like it is today, so beautiful, I love to be barefoot outside.
You hit the nail right on the head about Canada. I work with clients and I tell them you need to ground, you need to get your feet on the soil. And they're like, are you kidding me? It's -30 outside. So I like what you're saying about the polar bear dip, thing that you would do very quickly, of course. Breathing in the negative ions, I think, is a very crucial thing. If you look at cities and where we live right now, as you said, the smog, electronic pollution, all of that stuff, it changes the polarity of the ions. It goes from a negative to a positive. It's the negative ions that we need, not the positive ones. That's what keeps the grounding effect going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you're talking about the city and the negative ions, because in the cities, the negative ions are about they can be 600 times less than if we are in the forest or by the water. And that's why everybody loves to vacation and everybody loves to gravitate towards the natural waters and waterfalls and things like that. It's because of the negative ions. And so we are actually hydroelectrical beings. We really run on water. We're mostly water, and we are also electrical. And so when we connect with the Earth's energies, we are receiving the negative ions and the electromagnetic frequencies that our body actually needs. And we always hear about vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and all these things from food. But one of the missing links in our health is actually the energy from the earth. And so if we are not grounding on a regular basis, we do tend to feel ungrounded. And we can feel spacey and disconnected and headachy and fatigue. And of course, it balloons from there into inflammation in the body and arthritis and stress and insomnia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like if you knew somebody, even a child, was feeling very kind of disconnected and behaving sort of erratically, and you'd take them outside and go to the park or let them run around, and just being outdoors would help to ground them, and they would start to behave better because they would start to feel better. And it's the same for us. We're so disconnected, and we're not living very much out in nature the way our body really requires. And so we have all these symptoms, and they're so easily rectified by deep breathing and being outside and connecting with nature and allowing ourselves to simply get grounded by walking barefoot and being outdoors. And it's not that complicated. And then if you are indoors, there's all these grounding sheets like you were talking about and other devices. And we can talk about some of those. And it's just a fascinating, fun thing. Like if we're health seekers, and that's why we're listening to this, or we want to go to our next level and we're ascending and we're expanding our consciousness, this is something that everyone can do. And not everyone really knows about it or understands how important it really is, because it is so simple and it is so so deceptively simple that we might tend to overlook it. Like a lot of us might say, yeah, I know I should get out more, but are we actually doing it, right?
Basically, we have been taken out of our natural environment, being put into the city with concrete, asphalt, all of these bombardment of negative types of energy, cell phone towers, Gwen towers, microwaves, all that stuff has really taken us out of our environment and not being grounded. Our bodies are pretty much a capacitor, if you will. So what a capacitor does is it stores electricity, and when it fills up, it releases it, stores it, releases it. So the release mechanism for our physical bodies is grounding. So if you're not grounded, your body's going to build up a charge of all that static electricity, all that junk that is out there. And all of a sudden, now you're going to be, we call an EMF rage, electromagnetic frequency rage. You get a buildup of this energy in your body, and all of a sudden, it's trying to release. So it's going to release through some anger. It's going to release through an outburst. The grounding mechanism is very much multifaceted in many different ways. It really controls our hormones. It controls our brain waves. It controls all of the functions within us. If you're not grounded, okay, here's a good example. You're driving your car and you step on the brakes and the horn goes off. Okay, if your car isn't grounded properly, and that's attaching the electrical system to the frame, these things aren't going to work right. You hit the turn signal to go left, the park lights come on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Good example.
So that's what's going to happen to your body. Your body's going to freak out. I'm not grounded. I can't work properly. Is there any kind of mechanisms that you've seen or heard of that can actually measure if we're grounded or not? The amount of negative ions in our body. Is there anything like that?
Well, there's a book out there called Earthing by Clinton Ober, and when he first kind of came to this understanding, he did create a very crude sort of way of measuring that. There is something that can be measured actually in the body. And if you read about in his book and his whole journey and how he's discovered like how much inflammation is in the body, and there are ways of measuring the inflammation and measuring, I'm not exactly sure what the units are, how grounded we are, but yes, they can actually measure this, and they can do scans of the body and see, it's like not like auras exactly, but they can actually tell through, I'm not exactly sure what the scientific thing of it is exactly. I'm not a very scientific person, but what I get from that is that there is a way of measuring it. And if somebody wanted to know more, his book is very, very insightful that way. And there may even be, his book was a few years ago, I read it, and that's why I can't remember the details exactly, but there's probably even more great books on the subject. I know one that I read a few years after that was called Barefooting, or was it Barefooting? The Barefoot book, I believe. And so I think this is like an idea whose time has come, and people are starting to realize that, it's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be natural. And what we call normal today isn't actually natural. So for example, wearing shoes is very normal, but it's not natural. And so many things that we're doing are considered normal, but they're not natural. And so I was just kind of, as I was listening to you describing what you were saying about the car and that analogy, I was just curious, what makes you so interested in this topic? Because I was sharing a little bit about how I came to it very naturally from, the raw food diet and up-leveling my health. It just sort of naturally kind of moved in that direction. I was just curious how you came to this and why you're so passionate about it.
The work that I do, I work in the healing capacity. I work with, people 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, trying to figure out what's causing their health problem. And a big problem is grounding, EMFs, ELFs, all of these negative energies bombarding their bodies. Yes, grounding is the natural way for your body to release all of these problems, whereas a lot of people are using, let's say, artificial means to remove all of these frequencies. When you just simply ground, it makes a big difference. And I go into the whole concept of grounding our energy bodies, the astral bodies, all of these different energy components. If they're not grounded properly, it creates a whole different type of problem. Your astral body is how we astral travel at night. If it's not grounded, you're going to go someplace where you're not supposed to. You may not be able to find your way back. So that's why grounding at that level is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're grounded, it feels like now our vehicle is just really connected. We're in the flow. Otherwise, it seems like we're outside of the flow. What you were talking about earlier and asking about the measurement, I think it's the volts, the voltage. Mm-hmm. They can measure that through, I believe it's infrared imaging. So all of this can be measured. This is definitely real. And anybody can just sort of feel the difference if they're behind their computer all day and then fighting traffic. And, we're just so ungrounded all day unless we finally, take off our shoes and go outside into some green space and do some deep breathing, and we feel more connected. We feel more home in our physical body. And our body is the vehicle for our spirit. And if we want to do great things and whatever it is we came here, whatever our purpose or our dharma is, without a healthy body, it's very hard for us to actually go to our destiny. So this whole idea of grounding it's good for our body physically. As I was saying, it really does help with inflammation, and inflammation is a cause of hundreds of diseases in the body. So it's good for us physically, but also, as you were saying, spiritually, and just through our mental bodies and all of our different bodies. Grounding helps with all of that.
Another thing I find is we're in tune with the earth, in tune with Gaia. Now, there's something called the Schumann resonance, and that is the vibrational rate of the planet, of course. And right now, it's going up exponentially. It's going from a 7.28, let's say, it's up near 40 now. If you're not grounded, your vibration is not going to change along with it, because ultimately, we are an extension of the earth. We're an appendage, let's say, and we tune in to all those earth energies that happen within it. For a lot of people, if there's an earthquake, they feel it. Even though they didn't feel the ground shake, they feel the energy of that, of geopathic stresses, a water line underneath their house or something. They feel that because we are connected to the earth in that way. So if we're not grounded to it, we're not going to be rising in vibration the way we're supposed to. Look out, here comes Ascension, everybody. Don't miss it. The train is going to come by. You better be able to get on it. Somebody else has another question. What is the worst electronic technology to have in your home? What's going to cause the biggest problems?
I think that's the cell phones now. It used to be, the TVs, then the computer. Now it's the cell phone, right?
More so, let's say the Wi-Fi. Your refrigerator is probably one of the worst because it operates at about 60 hertz. Your microwave is where you
use microwaves.
Yeah, I got one in my house. I got 2 kids. I needed to use a microwave.
Oh no, I've got a son going off to college, and he was asking for one. I was like, "Are you kidding? I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. No way."
Well, we got shungite and orgonite all around it with a whole lot of frequencies. When we use it, nobody stands in front of it. It's like you turn it on and walk away. Use those shungite stones. Use these different types of EMF protectors so you can try and block it or reduce the amount coming off of it. Yes,
that's the beauty of life, I think. Everything has contrast, and humans are very, very, creative, and we can always find a solution, and we can always find a way to work, the workaround. So if one is like, I'm on the computer talking to you right now, and I'm not living off the grid, right? We do the best we can. So if you're using a microwave, like you said, don't stand in front of it, walk away while it's doing its thing. And if we're on computers, there's the grounding mats, there's different things we can use under our mouse pad if we have one. There's just it's just a matter of looking into it and seeing, well, what resonates with you? What's one thing you can do? One thing I do is I like to walk in the forest for about an hour a day. I was just at the cottage, just swimming in the lake, and we live near a lake. So I like to be out in nature to kind of counterbalance all these other EMFs and all the other energies and frequencies, because it's like what you were saying, we don't want to miss the boat, and if our energy is too dense, that's why I really try to get off the junk food and, upgrade the diet. And diet is just one aspect of it. I found that the diet was like it just opened the Pandora's box, and so many other things started to, it was like this incredible ripple effect, and the earthing and the grounding technologies came very soon after that. There's always something that we can do, and it's just a matter of like, what's up for us now? What's really calling to us now? So sometimes we can look at, well, what's the dream that we carry? What's the intention that we hold? What is something we really desire? Or it could be in terms of the nightmare and the challenge that we're facing, whether we're having insomnia or we're really overweight and not feeling well. So we're being guided in a direction, and it's always for our benefit, so that we can, like you said, ascend and rise and expand and go to our destiny. And if our body is not well, and if our spirit is being thwarted because our body is unwell and we're feeling stuck psychologically, there's always solutions. And one of the simplest and most elegant and graceful and effective is grounding. And it is as simple as going outdoors, and it is as simple as taking off our shoes. And even if you're not going to walk in the city barefoot, just to find green space, to be in your own yard, to go to parks and forests and wherever you can, and breathe deeply and get connected. Hugging a tree, it sounds a little silly almost, and yet it's so effective, and it really does work. But it would take hours to really counter, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're trying to counter the effects of all the bombardment of the radiation and everything that we're experiencing in a modern world. So they do have these grounding mats that you can lie on, for example, and say 8 minutes of that is like 6 hours being outside grounding. Any little thing like that, or, if you can go out as much as possible and ground, anything that you can do, you're going to notice your life elevates and you feel better for it. So why not? Why not do it?
Okay, now food-wise, Annette wants to know, are there any foods that are good for grounding?
Very good. Yes, again, I would consider that a soft technology. Food is a wonderful way that we can access, more of the earth energies. So anything that is green, for example, with chlorophyll, it just has that infusion of sunlight, and that is going to be very harmonizing to our system. And so it's also very cleansing and very elevating. But some people wouldn't find greens necessarily grounding, although it really depends on what gradient of the spectrum you're on. Like if somebody is coming from a typical SAD diet, standard American diet, then greens may not be grounding for them. Someone like myself, greens are very grounding for. So for that person, perhaps meat. Meat is typically very grounding. Grains. Again, a heavier, denser food is more grounding. In Ayurveda with the three doshas, the Vata, the Pitta, and the Kapha, people who are Vata, they're more light and quick, and they really need to be grounded. And a lot of those people tend to naturally go towards veganism, and sometimes they don't feel as grounded as a result. So some people do better on meat. But if you want to be vegan, then you go towards grains. If you want to be raw vegan, then you would move towards sprouting certain grains. Like, for example, a really good non-glutinous grain that you can sprout is quinoa, and it's very full of protein and it's got some good healthy fats. So that would be very grounding for someone, whether you cook it or you sprout it. But anything that's really got some life force to it, so food that is in its natural state, is going to harmonize with our body and is going to ground us. But if somebody is used to more heavier cooked foods and, denser foods and maybe not necessarily a really healthy diet, they're going to probably feel ungrounded if you took away the meat and took away the heavier grains and things like that. So it just depends on where that person is. I also find roots are a wonderful food that are very grounding because they are, from the earth. Literally, they live in the ground until you harvest them. So they say that roots are also very, very grounding. Things like tubers and like sweet potatoes are a wonderful grounding food. They're heavy, they're nourishing. They're a plant, so they're vegan, and you can cook them. You can eat them raw. I have lots of raw recipes with them. If you juice them, they're really good for your hormones. If you cook them, they're a wonderful way that actually they're less glycemic than white potatoes. So they're a wonderful way to nourish you without all that, extra carbs. So that's one thing. And another thing I think would be herbs, certain herbs and spices and, even flowers. These types of things are very, very grounding to our system just because they bring in so much more of that electromagnetic energy, that sun infused energy that our system craves.
Fruits, very electromagnetic, high in electromagnetic scale. So people with neurological issues, because your nervous system is electric, this may get you on a fast track to healing. A client of mine mentioned it to me. He's doing the research on it. I says, go for it. Whatever you feel is right, you go for it. I dowsed it for him, and it came up very high that he needed more electromagnetic energies within his nervous system. If you pull a potato out of the ground and it's still alive, food is still would be considered grounded, okay, because the connection is still there.
Yes, and speaking of sea salt and the sea, taking a pinch of sea salt into your water will give you some of the trace minerals that our body needs. Minerals are super important. When you think of food, you're really talking about these energies in the food, like our minerals and our vitamins and what are those other the conductors now I'm thinking of that raw foods are the enzymes. Like all of these things are so important, and with the minerals they help to create that conductivity of the electrical energies of our body. So for example, sometimes I've had like heart arrhythmias, and it's not that my heart has a problem so much as I was low in minerals. So if we're low in minerals, we can have heart palpitations and all kinds of other symptoms, which are basically being very ungrounded. So if you do put some good quality like Celtic sea salt or Himalayan rock salt into your water, not the table salt, not the regular iodized salt, but if you put a pinch of that, like say 1/8 or even 1/16 of a teaspoon to a liter, depending on, whether you have high blood pressure or low blood pressure. A lot of people who feel ungrounded are usually people towards the low blood pressure scale. And so putting a little bit of the sea salt, and then if you have a good trace mineral supplement, I know RNAreset.com has like this magnesium supplement that's amazing because our magnesium is so low in the soil, so therefore in our food. And also this Dr. Dean has also this other Remite. It's another mineral that has like I think 7 trace minerals that we're typically very low in. And that can be one of the most grounding things you do is drink a lot of water and be properly hydrated. And then when you put this sea salt in the water and these minerals, it makes the water wetter and more easily absorbed. So it's not just running through you, and you actually do become hydrated and you do become grounded, and you will feel the difference. You will actually feel the conductivity of your cells, and everything seems to just heighten and become more alive.
Okay, so all this talk is fine and good. Now, have you ever seen anybody experiencing somewhat chronic health problem by following some of these grounding techniques? Have you ever seen anybody actually get up and walk away?
Well, absolutely. And myself being one of them. I have had a history of the most like radical insomnia that you've ever heard of. Like I once literally went 11 days without sleeping. And I was, just like a basket case. But that wasn't the end of it. It just continued. And it's been about a 30-year issue for me where I will typically sleep a couple hours one night, go 3 or 4 days without a drop of sleep, and then I'll get a few hours, and then I'll miss a night, and then I'll get a couple hours, and then I'll miss 3 nights. This has just been my life. And it started when I was around 18, 16. My mom died. And a couple years after that, like I was living on the streets. And I know it's a crazy story, but my health was really, really bad and emotionally and everything. And I was even in a hospital in a psychiatric ward, and they were going to do electric shock treatments on me. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I have insomnia. I'm not schizophrenic or manic depressed. And they did the tests and it was true. I wasn't any of those things. I was just severely sleep deprived after 11 days of no sleep. And they tried all these different drugs on me and nothing even touched my system. So this led me on this quest of, how can I really become healthy? The doctors couldn't help me. So this has been like many decades long journey for me. And now, of course, I'm in my 50s and I am what people would say the picture of health, radiant, vital, maybe even by some standards, beautiful. And I never was growing up. I was always very sickly. So what happened for me with this whole insomnia thing, I never really got any reprieves. I never got any real satisfaction or help. I went to sleep clinics and had my brain electroded and tested, and they said, gee, you're not overweight, you don't have sleep apnea, you're not an alcoholic, you don't do drugs or even coffee. Like, why don't you sleep? Like they could never figure it out, and we never could figure it out. And it drove me to suicidal depressions on and off, and it's just been a big challenge. And a couple of years ago, a very good friend of mine who's known me since I was, a teenager and known that I've gone through this problem my whole life, she found out about these grounding mats and said, you just have to get one. And it was like $5,000 and it was, $6,000, something like that, like crazy expensive. And I was like, well, nothing has ever worked for me. Why would this? And she said, well, how you love to go grounding and that helps you, but you can't ground like hours and hours and hours every single day. But what if you could? It would be so much better for you. So I did the research and I eventually bought this grounding mat, and I've had it now for almost 2 years, or at least a year and a half. And I have literally missed, I can count on my hand how many nights sleep I've missed since I've been using this grounding mat. So even though it was super expensive, I literally use it twice a day for about 8 minutes. And it does give you about 6 hours each time of the earth's hertz of groundingness. And I noticed a huge difference. Like I still don't sleep 8 hours like my husband or my kids or, quote unquote, other people, normal people. But it has definitely, I have seen a huge difference since I've been grounding with that mat. And that's over and above all the years I've been grounding outside. So someone like myself was an extreme case where the outside grounding, I noticed it really ramped up my immune system. I was so much healthier. Like the raw diet took me to the next level, and then grounding outdoors, I never got colds. I never got sick. And this is someone who rarely sleeps, mind you. So my immune system cannot be as strong as it should be. But now that I'm grounding with this mat, and the sleep has been so much improved. I've literally missed just a handful of nights sleep since I've been grounding on this mat.
Right there, there's proof in the pudding, right? There's actually no denial that what you did helped you sleep.
I couldn't believe it. First thing that actually really helped me, made a huge difference. And the second thing was those minerals that I talked about in the water with the salt. I notice if I don't do that, I feel very ungrounded, and it doesn't even matter how good and clean my diet is. So I've gotten to a certain level with my diet, and it took me very, very far. But again, it only took me so far. So these two things about being outdoors every day, putting the salt water and the minerals in the water and sipping on that. And then if you have to, getting some of these grounding apparatus, and play with them and see which ones really work for you, because it's changed my life.
The way our body functions is a hormonal response. Sleeping is melatonin, thinking is this and that. I mean, everything is basically a hormone. Make a baby, it's all hormones. That's what hormones do. Is if your mineral level is low, okay, minerals is an activator for hormones. It's going to make sure that your body is producing the right amount of hormones. If your electricity is out, our bodies, as you said, are electricity. Water, grounding, protons, neutrons, all of these little atoms within our body, they spin around. They're little generators. Okay, when they spin, they're going to create a magnetic force, which is going to create electricity. If all of that stuff, those two simple things, the minerals and your body's electricity is out of whack, here's the scenario again with the car. Hit the brakes, the horn goes off. Hit the horn, and your wife goes flying out through the ejector seat. Our environment is causing a lot of disruption with grounding and electricity in our body. And number two, the food we're eating is just so laden with crap that your body doesn't know what to do with it, so it just stores it, and then your body creates more insulin, and you get fat, and then you come to see guys like me and say, how come I'm fat? And I say, well, listen to this lady and go ground yourself. Realizing that our bodies are designed to operate a certain way with certain levels of food, certain levels of energy. Certain things need to be in line for the enzymes to be created, for the electricity to be created, for the brain to work properly, for your immune system to say, hey, something's wrong. And when you have the right components in your body, your immune system has the right tools to go in and fix and fight whatever's going on. So ultimately, it's getting back to what we were once as a human. Hunters and gatherers, sleeping on the ground, eating nuts and berries, and maybe getting some meat now and then. That's the primitive instinct within us.
Well said. Yes, I agree with everything you said. That was a mouthful right there, but it's so true. And
that's my rant. That's my daily rant.
That was a good rant. I call it the sexy little basics because they give you everything you want. So, the diet and the fresh air and positive emotions and really, close relationships, like purpose in life. Like we cannot bypass these sort of laws of the universe. So, just being outdoors and grounding ourselves and, being nutritionally sound that way and having connections and meaningful friendships. Like there's so many things that, like you said, it's not complicated. It's not, brain surgery, but they're basic things, and yet they're so profoundly important. Like just, there's that series or book or tape I remember hearing, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, and it was all about minerals. And, it could be just, we're only as strong as our weakest link, right? So it doesn't matter what is plaguing us. If we can address that, and it's usually something very basic that we can be doing to turn that around, then we're going to just see such a profound difference in our overall life. And it doesn't matter how far gone we are, cancers and emotional meltdowns, like I've certainly been there, and everything in between can be addressed through these basics, these basic things of living. And grounding is one, and grounding is not something that we hear about very often. And yet it's like this overarching or underlying theme of why so many people feel depressed, neurological problems and mood disorders and eating disorders and emotional disorders and physical disorders. Grounding addresses all of that. And for a lot of us, let's be honest, it's a lot easier than even changing our diet. And I truly believe that one good thing does lead to another. So if we do one good thing and take one small step, although I would challenge people, instead of taking a small step, why not go for a giant leap in the direction of your dreams and what you really want out of life? Because life is passing us by very quickly. And, you can take baby steps if you want. There's no judgment. and definitely underwhelm yourself rather than overwhelm yourself. But I mean, if you can take on more, do it, because why not? It's up to you, and you're just going to feel that much better. So in your heart and in your soul what's calling you. And if you know that, now would be a good time to go outside after this interview and start to kind of think about some of the concepts we talked about and what you can bring into your life and what you're ready for and what you're willing to, open up to, you're going to see a big change in your health, your happiness, and your overall destiny and direction in life.
Shakaya, how can people get a hold of you?
I am at earthempress.com.
Awesome. Tonight, our guest has been Shakaya Leon. Thank you so much, dear, for being on. You are definitely right on the ball with things, and I agree with everything you're saying. And I can't stress enough that, yes, grounding is definitely something we need to consider.